Welcome back to The World Needs a Little Talk. Today, we are going to be talking about, because we looked at last Tuesday, Umbarger and I watched the movie called The Omen, made in 1978.
76.
76.
The year I was born.
Wow.
Yeah.
You could say a lot about him, everyone.
Yes.
But I know that we look at apocryphal British literature, but here's how we made this an exception: is we did discover that this was directed by an American, and it was written by an American,
Yes.
but it was all filmed in Britain.
That's right. Well, not all of it.
Most of it.
Yeah, it was an international film production.
Yeah.
So,
And but yes, the main
Wikipedia says so.
The main story was based in Britain, and that's where most of the filming took place. So
I think it fits because now you can see why the Good Omens is a lot of the jokes it's trying to make.
So in watching this film, we learned that a lot of Good Omens is pulling directly from this film.
Yeah.
So we'll be doing a callback to those to that story. If you remember those episodes, they were
What episodes are those?
Those are episodes 4 and 5.
Okay. So episode 4, yes. Okay.
That's right. Episode 4 is Good Omens Part 1, we could call it, and 5 is Part 2. That's not what they're actually titled.
And then we have Lord of the World.
Okay.
And then okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
So no, this one, I had a suspicion that Good Omens was riffing on this film. Like, there's a couple places where it explicitly is. Like there's this random, I can't even remember what they're doing, but they say something about a piece of plate glass decapitating someone.
When I was editing the episode, actually last night I was editing episode 5, and then you mentioned that. You're like, there's a point where they talked about the glass decapitating somebody, and then that reminded me, because on Tuesday when we watched it and that happened, you were like, that was they referenced that in Good Omens. And,
that's one of the most memorable scenes in The Omen, I think. That's probably what gives it a good hard R. Although watching it now, I tried not to laugh when we watched it.
We laughed a few times.
We laughed a few times.
But
I think in 1976 that was horrifying.
I'm sure. I probably we're just used to higher quality. Technology is advanced.
This is true.
But I will say I didn't know about I had never seen any clips from this movie. I went in blind. I didn't know anything about it. But the one thing I will say is the second that he was like, well, why are you so invested? Why do you want to help me? And the journalist was like, because of this. And he showed his photo, and you couldn't tell at all what was happening. It looked like there was just a tear in the photo coming right here to his neck. But then we saw it in the reflection of the glass, and I was like, he's going to get decapitated. I don't know how, but he's getting decapitated. And then, ironically, it was by glass.
It was by glass. I hadn't thought about that because they kind of do some foreshadowing there. So you mentioned the director of the film. Do you know who directed the film?
I don't know who directed the film. I did not do my research on everyone.
It's okay. You watched the film. That was the research.
Yeah.
Richard Donner. Do you know who Richard Donner is? Young punks. So Richard Donner is the guy who we've talked a lot about Superman. He's the one who made the original Superman film in 1977 and started to make, I think it was 77, and the one that I grew up with, loving. And then he made most of Superman 2 before he was fired. But Superman 2 is pretty good because of Richard Donner. And then they got rid of him, and then you have like Superman 3. Have you seen Superman 3 with Richard Pryor?
Oh, I have seen Superman.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of fun, but it's not like the others. It's something. Richard Donner also did Goonies.
Oh, which is wonderful.
Goonies is wonderful. So I think Goonies is probably Richard Donner's triumph. Like, of all the films he made, that's probably the one he's most remembered for. I don't know. Superman's pretty good. The first Superman's
probably both of
pretty
those.
good.
Yeah, I mean, Goonies is wonderful.
Goonies is wonderful. Yeah, Goonies is one of the. Growing up, I loved Goonies. It's also got me in trouble with my wife.
Oh,
Because I grew up watching the edited for TV version of Goonies, and then and I watched it with my sisters growing up. We wore that VHS recording that we recorded off of TV out, and so then my sister one Christmas sends to my kids when they were very, very young a DVD of Goonies, and I was so excited I pop it right in without watching it, and of course it's full of cuss words and sorts of things, and like that I was completely oblivious to.
You were like, these aren't my Goonies.
Well, I liked it more, but yeah.
But yeah, it was better.
Yeah,
those theatrical cuts, never go with those. You got to go with the director's vision. You get those full cuts of the film.
Yeah. Anyway, so no, Goonies is great. So that Richard Donner. So, what did you think of the film? First of all, would you recommend this film to others?
It's funny because I had asked a couple people if they did want to just sit in and watch it.
I did too.
And no one did. And well, the people that didn't, they said, "Well, I would, but I have a lot of work." If that be true or not. But then I did.
My daughter said that.
I think she just didn't want to watch the film.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. But then I said. Okay, well, I'll let you know, like, if it's worth a watch afterward. I'll let you know if you should give it a watch. And, yeah, it's not a bad film. It's not. Like, it's just, I think most people that would go to watch a film like that would be going to watch it for the horror aspect because it's a horror film. And this, again, crowded at the time, but the horror doesn't land anymore. Like, I never felt scared or afraid. Again, we tried to hold back from laughing.
Yeah, I laughed. It was very funny too, a lot of it. But maybe it's because I'm a father. I did feel it a little more. Like, it's not there aren't any jump scares really.
Yeah.
That I can think. It's not like that kind. It's not a slasher film. It's not there is the film is very good at establishing mood.
Yes, it is.
And as the movie progresses, I mean, it just feels darker. I mean, kind of claustrophobic. You just feel like, I mean, basically, the last third of the film is Gregory Peck deciding he has to ritually murder his 5-year-old son that he's adopted.
But he's come to great terms with this is not his actual son.
Sure.
He's doing it comes what he struggles with before he sets out to do it isn't the fact that this was his kid, but the fact that it is a kid.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
I think, he fully was like, this isn't my kid.
Yeah.
This is clearly an evil child. Like, but he still like struggled with the idea that, well, this is still a kid.
Right.
And I get that. Like, I thought they did that well. And the whole, like, I thought the story was done well. The characters were crafted well. I mean, there's a few points where you're like, stupid horror film. Like, he knocks her over, the kid knocks her over the ledge. It's like, okay, could have avoided that. When,
I thought that part was kind of set up pretty well.
Well, you could tell the whole time what was going to happen.
Sure.
But it was like, come on.
You don't think...
Are we? And then she does a full front flip,
Oh, I know.
and then catches herself on the railing, and then her 5-year-old's just staring at her, and she's like, "Help me, Damien, help me!" And I'm like, first off, even if he wanted to, this 5-year-old does not have the strength to pull you up over the railing.
Yeah, but she's desperate.
Okay, but here's the other thing: if she was able to have the agility to flip around, hook onto the railing, and then she's slowly working her day down the railing, that's a drop. It's not an insane drop. If she like looked down, prepped herself, she could have dropped down and suffered little injury.
Right. Instead of like falling
But you know, she lets it go,
she
and then
falls on her
goes
face, right?
yeah. And then somehow rolls over in this short drop. There's not enough time for her to roll over. This is actually a short drop, and then lands on her face. And then like so she
Instead
lands
of like landing on
she
her
lands, you know,
ankles, breaking her legs.
flat like this, right?
Yeah.
On her front. And then somehow landing like this, her face is completely fine. Her arm is fractured.
Yeah. And she there was a trickle of blood.
Oh, there was a tiny trickle. But then in the hospital we saw she has a wonderful makeup face right now.
Yeah. She was beautiful.
But yeah, so it's, you know, but that's just that nitpicky things of horror movies at the time.
Sure.
Other thing was the nanny showing up to push her out the window.
You got the satanic nanny.
That one, the nanny literally just stood there and stared at her, and she kind of turned around.
She stared menacingly.
And she did. She stared menacingly, and she turned around, and she had her gown over her head because she thought to try and take it off.
With her arm broken.
With her broken arm.
She's like,
for some reason. Yeah. I don't know. But then, and the gown's completely see-through, by the way. We were made note of this. Like, so she was staring right at the nanny.
Right.
And the nanny slowly, menacingly, starts walking toward her. And she doesn't go to defend herself. She doesn't like try to get the rest of the gown off. She doesn't go to jump out of the way. She just stares back at the nanny and then goes again.
Right. That was a much longer drop.
That one, yes, she couldn't have prepped that, but what she could have done was
run away,
defend herself, run away, something,
scream before she's falling.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Menacing nannies, they get you.
That's true. I mean, she is pretty awful. The nanny is.
Yeah. Well, so that one is fairly unique for the Omen. The one thing that we said was similar was in Good Omens, when they go to Warlock, who they think is the Antichrist when it's not. Because remember, in Good Omens, the switcheroo didn't work out. In the Omen, the switcheroo worked. So we'll get into that in a second. But Crowley shows up to be the nanny of Warlock.
Oh, that's right.
And then it's the exact same role where he's like getting him to be evil. And he's like, you gotta be evil. Like the nanny's essentially doing the same thing. We don't see a ton of we never see her talking to him about it, but she's very protective of him. And
well, the place where you see it most is the scene where he knocks his mother off
the railing. Yes, because he's spinning in the circle on his tricycle, and we're getting it pops up and it says, subtitles were like eerie, and it keeps cutting between him going in circles on his trike, going, and then the nanny with her sinister look of like,
but she's got there's a smile playing out on her lips.
Yes, and then I forgot. And then the Latin chant. That continuously throughout the film we get this Latin chant. But then she flings the door open, and the kid's like, "I'm revved up and ready to go."
Right.
And he knocks his mother out.
So the nanny's involved somehow. I don't know. There's I think there's telepathy or something going on. I'm not sure. There are a lot of questions. Watching the film, we've got questions about the monks. I have questions about the nanny. Where did she come from? all of this stuff.
Yes, I do wonder about that.
And I think that's part of what Good Omens does.
It tries to give some answers.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, it Good Omens is more fleshed out than the film is for sure. The film has a lot of these characters just showing up. So the chant. So when they're not singing Ave Satani, Hail Satan, but it's not good Latin. So they were. I was talking with Hadassah about this. Like, why not just go down the road to the Catholic Church? It's the 70s. Like, all those guys knew Latin back then, and ask Father O'Malley to help you out with the Latin here.
Yeah.
Or also, I mean, all sorts of things. There's all sorts of mistakes. The Bible stuff.
There's a lot of mistakes in the film. But I thought it's right. That's what I was thinking. I was like, I don't think it would have been that hard, especially being a Hollywood film. You have a lot of resources to contact anybody that knows Latin. Even if you could contact any university and be like, "Could I talk to your Latin scholar?" And then I'd be like,
"Yeah, call up Dr. Crane."
Yeah,
people know this stuff, but no. So they have what they did. It's obvious what they did to whoever wrote the music. They pulled out like an English Latin dictionary, and they looked up the words, and they didn't bother to deal with, because all of these words are in different cases, and they didn't deal with that. So you get Ave Satani, which is not right, and then you have Sangues Bibimus. They're trying to sing Sanguinem Bibimus. We drink blood. Also, the lyrics are, but you hear that all through. We drink blood. We drink blood. No one ever drinks blood.
Yeah,
but they sing about it a whole lot.
They do. Well, and at the strangest moments, like even when nothing ends up happening,
that's true.
You start getting, we drink blood, we drink blood, we drink blood, and then it's just the boy turns his head, and then we go to the next scene. And it was like, whoa, that was.
I will say that the music is spooky.
Yeah, it is.
It is weird that we all, and I don't know if it's because of this film, but whenever we think of like satanic rituals, we imagine that they are chanting Latin like monks do. Like, it sounds like Gregorian chant. Yeah. It's in Latin or something like Latin, which, that's kind of odd to me.
What do you think they would chant?
I don't think it really matters. I'm not sure. I'm not a Satanist.
Whatever language they actually know.
Yeah, I guess it seems a little strange to me that you would use the language of the church, the language that's used in exorcism, for a
Listen, every horror film, even the modern ones, they all will use Latin when it comes to not even always demonic, just anything supernatural. They'll just pull out the Latin in horror films.
I wonder if it goes back to The Exorcist.
I wonder.
So the Catholic Church has a sort of, let's say, there's an association with the horror genre. In at least, well, I think it's in Britain as well, British. So like old Gothic literature has a sort of fascination with the Catholic Church. I think it's because the Catholic Church is already kind of exotic, and they use this funny language, and they believe funny stuff. Like, you've read Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Do you remember? There's a lot of Catholic elements in Frankenstein, and I think Mary Shelley's just sprinkling it in there. It's actually rather sympathetic, but it provides a little bit of exoticism to her story. So maybe that, I don't know. That would be an interesting study. Someone should research. That's what you can do your master's on.
No, researching Frankenstein.
Well,
Latin did Mary Shelley like?
We should ask Dr. Dietrich about that. Yeah, he's probably gotten it.
Well, so what was it? 2 or 3 semesters ago, when I was in a class with Dietrich, talked about the fact that Latin's in all the horror films.
Okay, really?
Yeah, and
You
like,
noticed it too.
yeah, and but we didn't like actually look into it or anything. We started talking about it in a jokey way, and it was like the thing you need to know, kids, is you don't read the Latin. If you read the Latin out of the stupid book you find in the closet, then that's when the bad things happen. You don't read the Latin.
Yeah.
So then, because we joked about it so much, like the next semester, because I kept bringing it up with them when we look at horror stories, and so then I made a short film for him as a honors project because I made it on honors credit, and I titled the short film "Don't Read the Latin." And then the short film was the idea. Well, the short film was I had to go do a school project for my professor, P. Dietrich, and he wanted me to go to a cemetery and try and open up a portal to hell to see if it's true, if you could really do that. And so then the film was kind of it was a jokey but serious about me as a student going to do this. So then I read the Latin, and then how we did it was Brendan came along and he got possessed, and then we came back to Newman. We did it as if I actually went to school here, and then we had to battle the demon inside of the performance hall. And
in Brendan?
Yeah. And then we knocked the demon out of it.
So you have a history with this trope then.
Yeah.
In the I would say back when everyone spoke Latin was not the devil's language.
Yeah.
It was the language of the church. But there is a parallel here, because then magic books and such were typically thought to be written in Hebrew. So again, this old, holy, exotic tongue that is being used for something besides holy purposes.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's the intent in, I guess, the evil doers who started this, where they were like, well, let's take their thing and use it against them. Or make them feel like we're desecrating something important.
Maybe. Sometimes it like one thing about Satanism, sometimes it looks like they're doing some cosplaying. Did I say that right? Cosplay. They're and the kids always make saying that. So they're just like they're cosplaying, and part of it is mocking the Catholic Church, but I think also it's a little bit like, I mean, we do have all the coolest scenery, so I don't know. Just become Catholic. It's easier, and it won't do bad things to your soul. So that's my advice.
Yeah.
If you want to cosplay, and there's a lot cleaner way to do it. We'll let anyone in, and you don't even have to learn that. You can if you want. Anyway,
you've lost me on your statement. Cosplay, like as in dressing up in costumes.
Yeah, You wanna dress up like a Catholic priest or a monk? Well, just become a
Catholic priest or a monk.
You want to have, I don't know. That's what I'm thinking.
All right. Okay.
You want to use Latin? I mean, we got lots of Latin
to come join the church and learn Latin.
You want to do something weird and exotic? Yeah. We got lots of opportunities for that.
Okay. I wanted to clarify what you're saying.
Anyway.
No, that's funny.
So
I guess we could tell everyone else the same thing. All those cosplayers. You want to be a stormtrooper? Why don't you actually become an actor on the Hollywood set of Star Wars, you chump?
Or join the army.
Yep. You have to join Space Force.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you get to
join the Space Force.
I'm pretty sure. I could be just making something up, but I'm pretty sure I saw an article where they did say that the Space Force I just said costumes. I'm sorry, it's not. It's an actual military
Uniform.
force that we're going to have. The uniform is going to look very similar to that of like a Star Wars Republic clone trooper or something like
Well,
that.
I heard something about Star Trek.
Maybe Star Trek. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what I
But
heard.
I don't know. I'm thinking they might make a lot of nerds happy, and they might recruit a lot more people than they expected.
Maybe like Top Gun. Work
Yeah.
for the Air Force.
Yeah, that's
I don't
true. Look at Hollywood doing them favors. Government's going to start funding these movies. Make me another Star Wars.
So you weren't that impressed with the film.
No, I'm not. I wasn't saying that. Let me clarify.
Okay.
Let me.
All right. It's
If-
pretty old fashioned.
If I were to look at that film from the point in time that it was made, I would give it a 7 out of 10. If I were to look at it now, comparing it to modern films,
right,
then it'd probably get like a 4 out of 10.
Sure.
Right? But like
still 4.
So like honestly, overall it was a decent film. I liked the story, I liked the plot. It seemed well at the time it would have been original. Of
right. Yeah, there's nothing else like that.
and the honestly the holding it, getting rid of all my little petty things of like, wow, that was your directing or horror stick choice you wanted to make. Like I get those. That was part of the just how they were made. The main thing I have was just the ending.
Okay.
What they chose to do for the ending. I wasn't huge on the ending.
Okay, so maybe
So starting with
what part of the ending are we talking about here?
Yeah, well, so starting with the fact, like, I liked the fact that they were having him travel to these different places, but then when we get there,
Oh, right.
it
kind of becomes a mystery story out of
I felt like we should have got more information out of him showing up to. Well, where'd they tell him to go?
Well, first he tries to go back to the hospital where the kid's born.
Oh, yeah,
and
this all of this is fine. We're back here when this is happening. I like this. They go to the hospital. We learned that it got burned down.
Yes.
Looking back to Good Omens, it was the same thing when they go to revisit that hospital. It was burned down.
Very convenient. There aren't any records. All like the fire actually started in the.
It started in the records room, and I said, okay, well that's clearly was intentional.
Yeah.
Which we don't get any more info on that, which I think is fine. I think that's something you can leave a little open interpreted. But then after that, he remembers the father that forced this baby on him, and he's like, I want to know where he is. And they then track him down and go to find him. And
in
he's
some monastery in Italy.
Yeah. And there we learn that he worshipped Satan, or he made a pact or something. He had 666.
Yeah.
What looked like tattooed, but they said it was. They say this was a birthmark.
They all have these 666
because
birthmarks.
They said everyone's was birthmarks. Like,
and that's what marks one of the devil's apostles according to the book of Revelation. But anyway. Yeah, so they have this curious little, it's like sixes in a circle.
Yeah, they did it like like it could form a triangle if you were to like trace around.
And so he's got this birthmark, and the other priests have this as well.
Mm-hmm.
The priest. So
and then the boy, the 5-year-old Damien, the Antichrist, has it on his head.
Right. And so part of that is like, okay. Growing up, I heard all the time that the Catholic Church was full of Satanists who had infiltrated. Like, if the church itself is not Satanist, this was an anti-Catholic trope.
Uh-huh.
And so I think that's part of what's going on here. Is like, oh, there's like
look for their mark.
There's these priests that they're like, but these priests have compunction. Both of them are like they're like, oh, what have I done?
Well, the other one's only like, oh, what have I done? Because he's literally just stuck in a chair
Right.
and he has to be fed and cleaned and everything for him. He's like, maybe I shouldn't have done this. You know? Like, I think that's more of what it is.
Well,
It
he's
was
been punished by God too, because this is another verse that's supposedly out of the Bible that's not in the Bible about the eye and his hand withering and he's blind in the eye. And then
well, yeah, I was like, wow, how convenient. Because then they cut to him and his eye is withering and his hand doesn't work. And I was like,
so he has to use the left hand. He can't really see what he's doing. And they give him a piece of charcoal and he writes out like the name of the place where the body of the mother of this kid is. And so he's like, and I don't think he died, but he didn't have any strength left.
yeah.
And so then you look at this and you're like, chur gravy here. I couldn't
tell what it said whatsoever.
Like, oh, he's talking about cerbietta or something like this. And so they go to this cemetery, and when they're in the cemetery, they dig it up, and what was in the woman's tomb?
We couldn't tell. At least I couldn't. From the audience perspective, they give us a quick glimpse inside, but it's so dark you can't identify anything. And immediately we see the two of them freak out and close it, and then they just yell.
It must have smelled terrible, but it's been there 5 years.
Yeah,
I don't know.
But then the two of them yell, "Well, that's just an animal."
Right.
And I was like, "Are we supposed to believe they just threw an animal corpse in there and the mother's still alive?"
Maybe his mother was an animal. Remember the one?
Well, so I thought that, and I figured like,
okay,
beast. So I was like, that adds up for me. That makes sense. If it turns out the mother actually was an animal, I was like, I think that aligns with maybe the story they're telling. But I just had another thought.
Well, do you remember? Okay, first of all, do you remember the priest said his mother was a jack?
Okay, a jackal.
I don't know.
I don't know.
But he got cut off. He didn't let him say.
So then maybe the idea was the mother was an animal.
A jackass or a jackal or
I'm gonna go jackal. People always think jackals.
They sound really evil.
They do. It's like jackal. You know. But so that's. I think that's. I think that's honestly right.
Have you ever heard a jackal at night? I mean, you've never been out of the United States, have you?
Don't they have like
they sound like coyotes on acid. They sound really it's kind of freaky. They just kind of laugh.
I was gonna say it sounds like laughter, isn't it? But like but not like
like crazy manic laughter. Yeah. Not like hyenas. It's a little creepy.
Yeah. So I bet.
Okay, so what's your theory?
I bet that's what they were going with. Well, I just had the thought of that nanny that shows up out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
What if she was the actual mother? And that's why she was evil and protective. And she's kind of like, she seems about the right age range.
There you go. So Mrs. Was it Baylock?
I think Baylock, that was her name.
Mrs. Baylock is really the Antichrist mother.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, he also exhumes the body of the baby that was buried with her.
So that was actually his child.
And they see that its head had been
caved in. So that it wasn't a miscarriage, that they murdered it so that they could pass off the Antichrist thing.
So that scene is really dramatic and well done. But then all of a sudden these dogs show up.
Hellhounds.
Hellhounds.
So here's the thing. Let's back up and make the real quick connections to Good Omens. They intentionally put the Antichrist with him because he's now the ambassador of Britain.
Yes.
And Good Omens does the exact same thing. That was the point of the switcheroo, was for the baby to go with the ambassador of Britain, because then the Antichrist be raised in a place of political power, which will elevate his position. And of course, Good Omens, that doesn't end up happening because the switcheroo didn't work. But in this, it's happening. It's working. So then the other thing we see early on is on his 5th birthday, this the camera pans and there's just a Rottweiler hanging out in the woods, and it's not even growling or barking or anything. Honestly, the camera cuts to it, and this cute dog is just panting with his tongue out,
Right.
just looking at the camera. And I was like I'm sure at the time it was still scary because the stigma on Rottweilers, and because there's still a bit of that today. But now most people are pretty accepting of all dogs. But for a long time there was a stigma on Rottweilers and pit bulls. But yeah, so I'm sure at the time it was frightening to some people. But looking, they cut the camera, and I was like, that is an adorable Rottweiler they just put on the screen. I was like, that dog, I can tell you, just wants to give some kisses right now. He does not. But then we see that the current nanny at the time of that birthday party,
she has to go for the other nanny.
She has to go. So then that hellhound, adorable Rottweiler looks at her in the eyes, and I'm presuming is like using his satanic power to say, "Go hang yourself from the building," and then she does. But
the way she does it is also really that was chilling. Look what I'm doing for you, Damien. Yeah, sacrificing herself. Like, that was kind of.
I was like, oh wow. So that was again, that. It was different, but done well for what they were doing at the time.
But then suddenly in the cemetery there are 4 hellhounds.
No. They only could afford to have 4 dogs on set at the time, because we cut to one of them running, and then there's 3 of them on him, and we cut to the other one, and there's 4 of them on him.
Oh, that's right. You were saying, how many of them are there?
Yeah, because we cut back, and then there's 2, and we cut, and there's 1, and every single shot has a different number of dogs in it, we're intentionally jumping between the 2 different characters we're following, and somehow they fight off, escape the hellhounds, and jump over the fence, and they're trapped in the cemetery
after being mauled by them.
Yeah. So here's my big catch. First off, if you're going to toe to toe with one Rottweiler, the average human's not going to survive. That Rottweiler is going to kill you. So now imagine that this isn't a Rottweiler; it's a hellhound that we portray using a Rottweiler, and there's 4 of them. I don't care if you're a Navy SEAL. 4 hellhounds.
That's true.
Are going to kill you. They're going to tear you to shreds.
Maybe they were supposed to survive though.
That was
the one guy has to have his head chopped off by the police.
Yeah, so that was my one thing. That was for me. I was like, for the story to keep working for me, they were meant to survive.
Yeah. Well, and because if the ambassador dies, then everything has to be set up the way it is. So I don't know.
Yeah. But so then after that, they're in the hotel, and they're like, where do we got to go next? What was the name of that?
They have to go to Megiddo. They have to go to Megiddo, which is in the city of Jezreel. Jezreel is not a city; it's a valley. But they kept calling it a city.
And they have to meet
Bugenhagen.
Bugenhagen.
Bugenhagen. Who it sounds like a good German name, but when we meet him, he sounds like a Middle Easterner.
He did. But so then here's where I start having problems with the story.
I love the actor though. He's the guy who plays Cromwell in A Man for All Seasons. So it was fun to see him again, even though I was like, what is going on here?
You were like, I know you.
Yeah.
Okay. But no, so then he randomly meets this guy. This guy's like, I knew you would come.
Right.
I can only talk to him. Tells the journalist to leave. And I was like, okay, this doesn't work for me either. This doesn't make sense. But and then instead of, I should tell you, the writers didn't have an explanation.
He's been hiding out, by the way, under the city of Megiddo, this underground tunnel under there.
In a cave,
with
a table,
right?
But so then, anyways, he goes to explain everything. They cut to the journalist just wandering around because the writers didn't have an explanation. So then they cut back to him, and then he just hands him this big roll of knives, and he says, all right, remember what we talked about? You got to stab the child within the church on the altar.
Yeah.
In the formation of a cross. You
Yeah.
got to do start with this one in the center, and then do knives outward, and then knives to the side, and then he does it on just a table in front of him. And he was like, "You got that?" And then he's
Look
like,
at this really closely. Can you do that?
and at this point, I was like, "All right, we're just getting absurd at this point.
Yes.
Like this doesn't make any sense. Why in the where did these knives come from? Why are they so important?" And then I don't think that.
How does Bugenhagen know about it?
Yeah, how does Bugenhagen? Well, yeah, how does Bugenhagen even know about?
Why is Bugenhagen at Megiddo?
And why does he have these sacred knives? How does he know that this is the process that killed the Antichrist?
Who is Bugenhagen? Yeah, it doesn't tell us.
All of this, all these questions.
It's kind of skipped to the end. Yeah.
And then, equally, if Bugenhagen is a man of faith, then why is he wanting to kill and prevent the Antichrist? Because that also means he's preventing the second coming.
Oh, yeah, that's an interesting take. Okay, we got to come back to that in a bit. Okay, because yeah, that's an interesting.
So that's something we can open up.
Yeah,
but yeah. So then he just says, "Okay," and he takes the knives and he walks out. And then the journalist is like, "What did he tell you? What did he tell you? I'm your partner. We gotta know." And then he just says, "Well, I'm not doing it." He goes and throws the knife. So then we're going,
and that's what kills the journalist.
So then what kills the journalist is he goes and he the night. Well, this drives me crazy. He turns. They're in a single alleyway.
Yeah,
they're in a single alleyway.
Okay. By the way, this is all filmed in Jerusalem, not Megiddo. And Megiddo doesn't. Megiddo is this lonely archaeological site. Like, there's no city there. But this is a bustling city, and this is actually like the archaeological excavations we see are the Temple Mount excavations that were going on in the 70s. And then, which was wonderful. Like, I loved that stuff.
Yeah, that was cool
because I mean, I've read about all those excavations, and to actually see like film footage of that at that time, that was beautiful. Except it pissed me off because they were saying it's Megiddo. And
well, they were saying there, and they were like, stupid Americans are gonna know.
I think that's right.
But then they're in a single alley.
Yeah.
And he turns
in the Shuk in Jerusalem. Yeah.
And
he just like this.
He throws these knives straight down an alley, and the second they leave his hand, they're gone. We don't see them flying through the air at all.
We don't hear them.
We don't hear them. And then we cut to the next camera shot, and he's walking down like a completely open street in a different alley, and he's digging through a thing of sand. Yeah. And I was like, well, that's not where he threw those at all. But then coincidentally, they're wrapped up in a cloth that's the exact same color as the sand. And I don't, he wouldn't have to dig. He's laying on top of the sand, but it's all for the sake of storytelling. And then this truck happens to be right at the top of this hill that's right above the sand pit. And it starts honestly going down slow like this.
Where the guy gets out of the truck and he hits the emergency brake.
Yeah, he accidentally bumps into it, which isn't how emergency brakes work.
But yeah, I know.
And and it just is, it's slowly sliding down. It's slowly sliding down. He kind of looks and sees a truck moving. He's like, I'm gonna find these real quick. It's slowly sliding down. I got time. He's like, it's like, I don't even blame him. I'm like, it is moving slow. I do think you have time. You should just pick those up. Like, literally, the strokes just, and we hear the drink the blood, drink the blood, drink the blood, and he's like, no, I got time. I'm gonna find these. I'm gonna find these. And then, real quick look back, and all of a sudden, that truck went from slow motion to
it's like Jaws.
Yeah. Except instead of getting the build up from the to the dun, 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 we went straight from dun, 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 and then, boom, and his head.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't see it coming. I had no clue. But then, what kind of sucks is, we see it kind of is like he doesn't, literally, we get that shot, and then the very next shot, our main character's on an airplane holding the knives. He's like,
no.
I'm ready. That was the one thing I needed to tell me I gotta kill this kid. Which, to an extent, well, yeah, that is the one thing that would tell me, like, this is the one guy that's saying, all right, we gotta do this. He gets murdered. And it's like, okay, clearly,
it's up to me.
It's up to me. So,
of course, it's been prophesied, too, with the weird photos.
That's a big thing. There's a lot of prophesizing.
Yeah.
We see...
you get a cute little poem that reminds me of Agnes Netter's stuff. So there's this poem about how when the Antichrist, something about coming from the eternal sea, and something, and that's when we will all die. When you and I die, like, it's a really ominous.
And it was, where'd that come from?
Right. Well, this is in his book. It's in that the Satanic Monk's book.
Yeah, and it's okay. Where'd that come from? Whatever. But then and we mentioned the photos earlier, and he took a photo of the nanny before she got hung, and all we see is like a line. And at the time they do this well, you're like, I don't get it. There's just a line there. And later you start to, as you figure it out as he does. Like, they do a great job at pacing this part of the story. We're piecing this together. And then that other priest, I didn't even make the connection with the girl yet, but later he takes a picture of that priest, and then he's got a line. And I was like, oh, I think that's supposed to be a noose. I was wrong. The noose was around the nanny. But then, coincidentally, when he dies, it's this rod falls and goes straight through his neck and torso into the ground. And I was like,
all the deaths are very freaky.
Yeah.
They're very, like, the freak accident type deaths.
But then, I mean, the second that they learn that he's got this ability to learn how people are going to die, I would have been like, all right, well, we're the important characters of this story. Take a picture of me real quick. Am I going to be okay? And then we would have saw a bullet hole, and he'd been like, okay, I got to make sure I stay away from guns. And he'd be like, hey, come take a picture of my wife real quick. She's in the hospital. I want to make sure she's safe. And then
he would have seen the nanny.
Look, I mean, I do wonder, what would you have seen if you took a picture of her? Like,
the ambulance.
You would have seen ambulance lights in the background.
No, I had this in thought. Like, you have this great gift. Start taking tons of pictures now. But I don't know.
Yeah.
But so the ending, there are a lot of questions at the end. It doesn't wrap things. So I think part of that's probably intentional.
Well, yeah. Well, apparently there's 3 sequels to this film.
Yeah, we probably don't need to watch those.
Yeah.
But this one is, although Sam Neill is in one of them. Sam Neill.
I think you said the third one. I think it's the older version of Damien.
Yeah, like. So now, and then you see that the fact that he goes through all of this, so maybe Bugenhagen isn't a good guy. Maybe he's setting this up, like, because he wants to get the ambassador there with this weird ritual with the knives, so he'll get shot.
This could be true.
I hadn't thought about that. Maybe, and so it's all setting him up so that they get him out of the way, so that the kid is adopted by the president, and then you have, like, there you go.
I mean, that just felt a little. Of course he was adopted by the President of the United States. Who else would want to adopt the British ambassador's child? Yeah, so that's how the movie ends, is he's standing holding the president's hands, and we're at the funeral, and it zooms in on his head, and then he turns his head and he just smiles, and then credits.
Because someone's baby moves.
Yeah, as the music, the chanting is going again. But just the whole thing, as he throws the kid in the car. He's speeding off to the church.
Yeah.
The police are like, "Wow, we got a speeder!" And then he continues speeding, so they call in more police. And it's the simplest high speed chase, probably the most realistic one of just for a film of just cops are driving fast, chasing this guy going fast. Films always exaggerate and blow
That's
these.
true.
And this one was he's driving fast, they're driving fast after him, and he gets to the church, he pulls the kid out, throws him up on the altar, and then
I don't know what he thought the police are going to do. That was my whole thing is
like clearly
at this point
I was like, what's obviously going to happen is the police are going to shoot you. You're holding a kid on an altar with knives in your hands, planning to stab him.
I don't know.
Here's my advice next time. Drive the speed limit, and then you could have murdered the Antichrist without the cops knowing.
I had the same thought.
But
I suppose when you're about to do some Antichrist murdering.
But I don't know. Equally, I felt like all of this was supposed to be a little bit of a parallel. Like they literally have the father putting his son on an altar with the knife, saying, "You have to kill your son."
So what were you thinking of? What the parallel with what?
Well, I'm thinking of the Bible when God said, "Hey, I need you to, take your son."
We're talking about Abraham.
Yeah, Abraham,
Yes.
and then I want you to kill your son, and then, like, I was like, this is clearly supposed to be a parallel, but also I was like, but I don't see it working. It's not working for me. I was like, to Abraham was being tested by God, but this is God didn't even talk to.
From the standpoint of storytelling, I think the biggest flaw of the film is they don't make Damien likable.
Yeah,
he's just this little punk kid. Like the minute he throws the fit about like not wanting to go to church, I'm like, yeah. It's just you don't ever see him. He's never. You don't get to see any like affection between him and his parents. That would have made it.
That would have made it more. But look, ever since we're introduced to him, I'm like, I hate this little fucker. I'm like, he's demonic. He's a creepy little kid.
Yeah.
Literally, like, I don't think he had really any dialogue. I think he had one line the whole film, and it's when his dad's trying to kill him, and he goes, "Daddy, please." I think that was the only piece of dialogue that literally the whole time. I said "holy time" on accident, but the whole time, he's 5 years old and he doesn't talk. Like they're doing everything for him. They're babying him. They're taking him up, putting him around, and I'm like,
right before Nanny hangs herself, he says, "Look at Nanny." But that's about it.
With a smile on his face. I'm like, no one else is creeped out by this dude.
Yeah.
Really?
Okay, so we don't have a lot of time here. We have to talk about like why this film is so big. Because it's obviously not perfect. And it probably hasn't aged really great. I saw it in Israel years ago. And I think I saw the whole film actually back then. I remembered very well because it's not that memorable.
You seem to be getting a lot of this for what it felt like the first time. But.
Yeah. But so I did a little bit of research on this, and this movie played into the zeitgeist of the mid 70s going into the early 80s. So we talked early on. We talked about Hal Lindsey, The Late Great Planet Earth. That was published right before this film came out. If you hadn't had Hal Lindsey, you probably wouldn't get the Omen. And the whole like the oral history of this is that a couple Hollywood movers and shakers, like producers, are playing golf or something, and one of them has found religion, and he's like, "Hey, Joe, you think that the Antichrist could be walking around among us today?" And Joe's like, "I don't know. what the Antichrist is. So like this is weird. And so his newly like fanatically evangelical friend just kind of gives him the whole Hal Lindsey spiel about how we are in the last days. There's all of this proof, and the Antichrist is probably right now, you know, he might be in a family. He could be living here in LA with us. And the other producer friend,
he could be going to school with your kid.
Exactly. And the other producer friend is like, I'm not really interested in this religion stuff, but this sounds like a great movie. And so then you get this weird feedback loop because they make this movie, and according to some of the things I'm reading, evangelicals, Hal Lindsey was just kind of starting to get some traction. After this film, his books sold like hotcakes. Everybody's reading them, and everyone's talking about. So the big speculation, all this scare about the mark of the beast, comes from this movie. No one was really talking about it before this. And it's kind of weird because this isn't the sort of movie, growing up in my household, I was never allowed to watch this as a kid. Or all my friends had seen the Omen, but I never watched it. And it wasn't the sort of, like, R-rated horror films weren't things that good Christian kids watched. And yet, somehow, the ones who did watch it, they told all my friends about it, and it had this sort of cultural snowball effect until I don't think you get the Left Behind series in the 90s without the Omen, produced by secular Hollywood.
Now tell me this: were all the kids on the playground going around asking you, "Hey, getting birthmarks?"
No,
I want proof.
But I was never suspected of being the Antichrist. But you brought up something else. Okay, so the idea, like, well, if you really believe this stuff, then why don't you just let it happen?
Yeah.
And, there is a sort of weird, this is why so many fundamentalist evangelicals are big, big supporters of Israel. You know this? Okay. You know this, but you want me to tell you. So
I don't know this. I was just being like, continue. That was like, continue.
All right. So evangelicals, like, again, from about this time period, this is when people like Jerry Falwell, 700 Club, all these guys, John Hagee, this becomes a big part of their ministry, is preaching on the end times, and specifically the role of Israel in the end times, and that so Israel becoming a nation again fulfills prophecy. So here we are in these last days, and we have to support Israel because the Antichrist is going to come and rebuild his temple in Jerusalem. And so Israel has to be there. They have to have sovereignty and they have to be in charge of the Temple Mount for them to rebuild the temple. And so we're going to give Israel all the support we can. And they flooded Israel with millions of dollars. That's not really because they love Israel. It's not because they love Jews so much. It's because they want, weirdly, the Antichrist to come. Yeah, it's weird. It is weird because unless the temple's built, unless the Antichrist comes, then Jesus can't come back.
So they're looking at it step with heads, and they're like, "We're in this for the long haul."
Yeah.
So we got to do a little bad to do a little good.
They wouldn't see it as bad. I mean, I think they, honest to goodness,
Israel. They're funding a throne for the Antichrist to sit on.
Yeah,
that sounds bad in my opinion.
That does sound bad.
Right?
When you put it that way.
Well, so
Don't put it that way.
Yeah. Here's my thing. Here's what. So I think it works in the way that the Lord of the World portrayed it,
okay.
where this rise to power, it's working against the church. It's but there's never this outright, this is the Antichrist, right? It's this is, we need to continue like our fight for the people of God and this for God's name because the world's going down a bad direction. And so they're doing this. So then it's like as if they don't even realize what's actually happening here, and it's just it feels natural and it comes naturally. And I feel like more realistically, it's gonna all come down a lot more naturally, like that. But so then I think it's expected that yes, we'd want to fight the very people's power.
Yeah, however, whatever that looks like, that might not come down to taking up physical arms.
Yeah.
Like I don't think any of us. I think it's in a really dangerous place when we start speculating about who the Antichrist is.
Yeah.
You never get the instructions in the Bible for how to kill the Antichrist. Like you need to think about.
You mean these knives?
Exactly. There's nothing like that in the Bible. Instead, like it's all a lot of like this has to happen, and so you have to. I mean, Jesus, when he talks about the end of the world, he basically talks about getting away from where the danger is and persevering until the end.
Well, and what you didn't see is that because it didn't make it, he goes and hands this guy a few knives. And he says, "Make sure that your great grandkid's gonna have these. They're gonna come in handy."
And name him Bougainville.
That way they know.
That's in Matthew chapter 29.
That's right. But no, so I don't think there should be any speculation, like true speculation. But what I do enjoy the concept of like, okay, if the Antichrist is supposed to come and he's gonna like come as an adult, like I enjoy the idea of like, well, that if for something to be grown, it has to be a kid at some point. What would that look like?
That's true. Yeah.
So I enjoy playing with that idea for story like I think that's interesting. I don't think truly speculating on that's a good idea to do, but I enjoy like the that's because it is true. Like for something to be a grown, it had to have been a kid.
This is a good. Yeah, it makes a damn good story. Yeah, so, and this comes back to something we talked about at the beginning of the class, that in all of the old Christian literature, whenever you talk about the Antichrist, he comes on the scene, like, fully matured, with, no, we don't get any, there's no origin story for the Antichrist in anything until 1976.
Yeah.
And so the origin story of the Antichrist is the Omen. And I think everything that you talked about,
everything we've got,
when you think about the Antichrist, you think about creepy little kids, right?
And I think you're right. Now that we've explored
that's why I wanted to watch the Omen. Because I think this is where it happened.
Yeah. Well, now look, reflecting back on when American Dad did the episode over the creepy little kid, it's 100% ripping off the Omen.
There you go.
This little kid is the kid from Omen.
Yeah.
And then
there's one other movie. It's based on a novel that's a little older. I think it's 1969, something like that. Has Mia Farrow in it. It's Rosemary's Baby, which I haven't seen that one, but I know about it.
Okay. We have another one to add to the list.
Maybe we'll watch that one some other time. But that one is about. It goes even further back. It's about being pregnant with the Antichrist.
Oh, so we don't even. We're going from childhood to just the pregnancy.
Yeah, it's not good. It's not good to be pregnant with the Antichrist. And
probably not. I mean, we won't know unless we see Rosemary's Baby.
Well, from what I hear, so there you go. By the way, this is a beautiful shirt.
Oh, thank you.
We were talking about the price tag on one of those buttons. I'm sorry, Austin. It's 065.
Well, that wasn't how much I paid for it, but I wonder what that is for. I didn't catch there was a sticker on the button. That's actually weird.
There you go.
That's because that's perfectly
the
button. That's
so you have this lovely banana shirt.
I do, and you noticed as you were eating a banana.
I know it was
for lunch.
Very apropos. I'm eating a banana off your shirt. So why bananas?
So, well, I ironically, my one time school shopping, high school, I think going into sophomore year, we were getting new college shirts. I had to wear a private school. We didn't have necessarily a uniform. We had a dress code. We had to wear collars, and I was tired of the lame old shirts, and I saw one with bananas. It was a white shirt, but it had a bunch of small bananas, much smaller than these, and some were peeled open, some were still closed, and so then I was like, I want that shirt, and I've commonly worn that shirt throughout my years. People often do love my banana shirt. Down the line,
I'm sure I've seen it, but I can't remember it.
yeah, you would have seen it. And then down the line, I learned that I'm allergic to bananas.
This is an ironic shirt.
So then it makes it more fun that I get to represent them and wear them. But then, today I got up early. I went to Target because I'm buying treats for everyone. I'm about to do a tech day for the set that I'm building. So I'm like, I want people to be able to enjoy it. And I said, you know what? I'm gonna treat myself today. I'm gonna buy myself a little birthday present. I went looking at the shirts.
Birthday?
Yeah, it is.
Happy birthday!
Thank you.
Yeah.
But so I was like, I was like, I want to look at the button ups because I love fun. I love fun button ups, as you've seen.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a few. None of them really. Most of them were kind of just basic floral patterns or whatever. Nothing too crazy. And then I was like, banana shirt.
There you go.
And
you saw it and it called to you.
It did, and I hesitated getting it because I was like, I already have a banana shirt. What do I need another one for? But I was like, but that is it's a pretty nice banana shirt, so I went ahead and got it.
Hadassah, we have a good friend in Cameroon. He lived with us in Israel for a while, and he got a shipment of things from Cameroon, and among them was this little dress. And it has bananas and then like these little, it looks like explosions. And we always called it the boom banana.
Boom banana shirt.
Yes.
Was it like fireworks or like that?
They're just like they're like comic book,
like a comic book.
Yeah.
Kablam.
Yeah. And so it's very random, but it's eye catching. So anyway, it reminds me of the boom banana dress, so it makes me happy.
Oh, good.
Ellie actually wears it every now and then. So my 4-year-old. So anyway,
we could match one day.
I'm not going to wear the boom banana dress. Thank you for the little talk.
Thank you. Till next time.
Well, that was fun.